Stand up. Now. The voice cuts clean through the room, sharp and practiced, aimed at one person and one person only. Not loud. It never needs to be. The class responds before thought catches up. Chairs stop moving. A pen slips from someone's hand and no one bends to pick it up. A row of students suddenly lowers their eyes, staring at notebooks they were not reading seconds ago. The authority already owns the space. Everyone knows that. No one tests it. A girl in the second row rises from her seat. Her name is Elena Cruz. She moves without hurry, not because she's calm, but because she understands timing. Standing too fast looks guilty. Standing too slow looks defiant. She chooses the middle, controlled, measured. Her chair scrapes once against the floor. The sound feels louder than it should. The man at the front of the room, Mr. Caldwell, watches her the way people watch something they believe they've already solved. His hands rest lightly on the edge of the desk. Relaxed, comfortable. This is familiar territory for him. He has done this before. Many times. Always in public. Always with witnesses. Elena doesn't speak. She doesn't ask why. She doesn't glance around for help. Her eyes settle forward, unfocused but alert, as if she's watching a point just past him. Silence gathers around her. Not empty silence. Charged silence. The kind that makes people hold their breath without realizing it. Mr. Caldwell tilts his head slightly, a gesture that reads as patience but isn't. It's ownership. He lets the pause stretch just long enough for discomfort to bloom in the room. A few students shift in their seats. Someone in the back coughs, then stops. No one smiles. No one defends her. "You were paying attention, weren't you?" he says lightly. A ripple moves through the class. Not sound. Expectation. Everyone understands the pattern. This isn't a question. It's a setup. Elena remains still. Her hands rest at her sides. Fingers relaxed. No shaking. No tightening. She counts quietly in her head. Not numbers, but beats. The way he speaks. The way he pauses. The way he likes to be watched when he's about to humiliate someone. Mr. Caldwell turns slightly, pacing one step to the left so the whole room can see his face. So everyone can see the smirk that hasn't fully formed yet. It's polite, almost friendly. That's how he does it. Cruelty wrapped in civility. "This is basic," he says, drawing the word out. "Something we've gone over more than once." A few students nod automatically, even though they're not sure what he's about to ask. Agreement comes easily here. It's safer that way. Elena feels eyes on her now. Not sympathy, curiosity, anticipation. The kind of attention that turns a person into a lesson. Mr. Caldwell glances down at his notes, then back up, as if choosing between options. He enjoys this part. The choosing. The control. Finally, he looks directly at her. "Tell us," he says, "how you'd solve it." He doesn't say what it is yet. He lets that hang. Lets her stand there without context, without protection. The room leans forward without moving. Even the clock seems quieter. From the third row, Ryan Whitmore shifts back in his chair and crosses his arms. He's smiling openly now. Ryan doesn't bother hiding his reactions. He's never had to. His father's name is on a plaque in the front office. His family funds the new gym. Teachers pronounce his last name carefully. He knows where he stands in this place. Ryan watches Elena the way people watch a slow fall they're certain will end badly. He doesn't hate her. Hate would require effort. This is simpler than that. This is confirmation. Proof that the world still makes sense. Mr. Caldwell finally delivers the question. It's long, layered, several steps beyond what's expected. The kind of problem that makes even confident students blink. He says it smoothly, casually, like he's reading a grocery list. Like the difficulty is imaginary. "This should be easy for you," he adds, almost kindly. A quiet laugh escapes someone near the window and is immediately swallowed by the room. A few heads turn, then turn back. Elena absorbs it all without reacting. Her face doesn't change. Not because she doesn't feel the weight of it, but because she refuses to give it shape. She listens, fully, not just to the question but to how it's framed. where he emphasizes certain words, where he rushes, where he slows down. She notices the trap hidden in the phrasing, the assumption baked into it. She doesn't correct it. Not yet. Mr. Caldwell finishes speaking and folds his arms. Waiting. Certain. This is the moment he lives for. The pause before failure. The shared understanding between him and the room that what comes next will not go well for her. Ryan's smile widens. He glances at the students around him, silently inviting them to enjoy this together. No one meets his eyes. They don't need to. The outcome feels inevitable. Elena stands there, still, silent. Seconds pass. 1, 2, 3. Mr. Caldwell's smile tightens, just a fraction. Not doubt. Impatience. Well, he prompts. Elena does not answer. The room holds its breath. And the silence stretches, unresolved, heavy with everything he assumes she cannot say. The silence refuses to break on his schedule. That's the first thing that irritates him. Mr. Caldwell shifts his weight, just enough for the front row to notice. He doesn't like waiting. Waiting suggests uncertainty, and uncertainty is something he never allows the room to associate with him. He clears his throat, a small sound that carries authority here. Go on, he says. We're all listening. He gestures broadly, inviting the class into the moment, making them complicit. A dozen faces lift, then freeze. Some students sit straighter, as if good posture might protect them from becoming the next example. Others stare hard at their desks. A girl near the aisle presses her lips together. Someone else grips a pen until their knuckles pale. Still no one speaks. Elena remains standing. Her eyes move once, slowly, not to search for help but to measure distance. Desk to board. Board to door. The clock above the whiteboard ticks. She counts the ticks. Not because she's nervous, because she's patient. Silence, when used correctly, has weight. She lets it settle. Mr. Caldwell lets out a soft chuckle. It's meant to sound generous, forgiving. It lands wrong. Nerves, he says to the room, not to her. Happens. Ryan snorts quietly. A couple of students glance at him, then away. No one laughs with him. That doesn't stop him from enjoying it. He leans back farther, stretching his legs out, claiming space. This is familiar. Someone is about to be reminded where they belong. Mr. Caldwell turns back to Elena, eyebrows raised now, the politeness thinning. We've covered this extensively, if you were following along. The last part isn't subtle. It doesn't need to be. The implication is clear enough for everyone to hear. Elena absorbs it without flinching. She notes how quickly he shifts from patience to accusation. She notes how easily the room accepts it. She still doesn't speak. The clock ticks again. Louder now. Or maybe that's just how it feels. Mr. Caldwell exhales through his nose. His smile fades. Not completely. Just enough to reveal the edge underneath. All right, he says. Let's simplify. He rephrases the problem. Strips away some complexity, but not the trap. He frames it as a kindness, as help, as if he's doing her a favor by lowering the bar. A few students nod along, relieved it isn't them up there. This part, he says, tapping the board with his marker, is something you should know. The marker clicks against the surface. Once, twice. Each sound lands like punctuation. Elena's gaze follows the marker, not his face. She watches where he taps, what he emphasizes, what he assumes she won't notice. She files it away. Ryan shifts again, bored now. He was hoping for tears, or at least panic. This is taking too long. He mutters something under his breath about wasting time. The student next to him stiffens but says nothing. Mr. Caldwell hears it. He always hears it. He chooses not to address it. That too is a choice. He looks back at Elena. You can start whenever you're ready, he says, though his tone suggests he believes that moment has already passed. Another pause. This one shorter. Intentional. Elena finally moves. Not her mouth. Her hands. She lifts one slightly, adjusting the strap of her backpack on the back of her chair. The movement is ordinary, unremarkable, but it draws every eye in the room. Movement breaks tension. People lean in without realizing it. Mr. Caldwell's lips part, ready to interrupt, to reclaim control. Elena doesn't give him the chance. She looks up, not at him, at the board. Her posture doesn't change. Her expression doesn't soften or harden. She simply prepares to speak. Ryan straightens a little, curious despite himself. Mr. Caldwell opens his mouth. Elena inhales, and the room waits, balanced on the edge of whatever comes next, unaware that the certainty they walked in with is about to be tested. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a precision that leaves no room to hide. The silence stretches past comfort and into pressure. It always does. Mr. Caldwell lets it linger for a beat longer than necessary, then tilts his head as if he's decided to be generous. His marker taps once against the board, a sound that snaps attention back to him. He doesn't acknowledge the question he already asked. Instead, he replaces it. "All right," he says, smiling thinly. "Let's try this another way." The second question lands harder than the first. Sharper, fewer words, framed as obvious, framed as something any attentive student should handle without effort. He delivers it casually, almost bored, like the outcome is already settled and he's simply filling time until it proves itself. A soft laugh slips out of him at the end, not because anything is funny, but because laughter signals confidence, certainty. The room takes the cue. A few students shift in their seats. Someone exhales too loudly, then clamps their mouth shut. Eyes flick to Elena and away again. No one wants to be seen watching too closely. From Ryan's desk comes a quiet sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sigh. He leans forward just enough for his voice to carry to the people nearest him. "Guess that's what tutoring money buys," he mutters. Then, a half second later, "Or maybe she learned it on night shifts." The words aren't sharp. They don't need to be. They slide into the room and settle there. No one calls him out. A couple of students glance at Elena, then quickly look back down. The insult doesn't spark outrage. It doesn't spark anything at all. That's the point. Elena listens. She always does. She notes the timing. How Ryan waits until the authority has spoken before adding his piece. How Mr. Caldwell doesn't react. Not even a warning look. Silence, too, is a form of permission. She answers. Her voice is even. Quiet but clear. She gives the result. Just the result. No preface. No defense. No attempt to soften it. The answer lands in the middle of the room and sits there. For half a second, nothing happens. Then Mr. Caldwell's smile falters. It's subtle. Most people miss it. But Elena sees it. The way his eyebrows tighten. The way his jaw sets before he speaks again. This wasn't supposed to happen. The answer was supposed to be wrong. Or incomplete. Or shaky. Something he could correct publicly. Something he could use. Instead, it's correct. The room feels it too. A low hum of uncertainty ripples through the desks, then dies as quickly as it started. No one celebrates. No one smiles. Correctness in this space is not yet a victory. It's a complication. Mr. Caldwell recovers quickly. He always does. "That's one way to get there," he says, waving a hand as if brushing something off. "But answers like that don't tell me much." He chuckles again, a little louder this time. "Memorization can take you far," he adds, "especially if you're good at guessing." The words sting because they're designed to. He reframes her success as suspicion. He shifts the ground beneath her feet. The class follows his lead without realizing it. A few students nod. Someone whispers, "Yeah," under their breath. Ryan perks up, encouraged. He leans back, satisfied. This makes sense again. This is the order he recognizes. Mr. Caldwell steps closer to the board. "Let's be honest," he says, addressing the room while looking at Elena. "This isn't about lucking into the right answer. This is about understanding." He turns suddenly. "Explain it." The smile returns, sharper now. Hungrier. "If you really understand." The implication is clear. If you don't, we'll all know. If you do, I'll decide what that means. Elena pauses. Not because she can't explain it, Because she knows exactly what he's doing. She counts the beats between breaths. She remembers Rule 1. Don't correct too early. Let them commit. Let them build their case. Ryan's grin widens. He taps his fingers on the desk, waiting for the stumble he's sure is coming. In his world, people like her don't get to be right twice. Elena begins. She speaks slowly, not to perform, to be precise. She walks through the steps one by one, grounding each move in logic so simple it's almost plain. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't look at Mr. Caldwell. She looks at the board, as if the explanation exists there already and she's only tracing it. A murmur stirs. Low, confused. A girl in the front row frowns, then straightens. Someone in the back whispers, "Wait," then stops themselves. The sound doesn't grow. It fades. Confusion replaces certainty. Mr. Caldwell interrupts her mid-sentence. "No," he says sharply. "That's not how we approach it." He doesn't explain why. He doesn't need to. His voice is louder now, firmer, authority reasserting itself. "You're skipping steps," he adds, even though she isn't. "You're oversimplifying." Elena stops speaking, not because she's wrong, because she's finished letting him show everyone who he is. The room goes quiet again. Different this time. Thicker. The kind of silence that doesn't rush to resolve itself. Mr. Caldwell keeps talking, filling the space she leaves behind, correcting problems that don't exist, tightening rules no one agreed to. He doesn't notice the shift. He's too busy defending a system that was never meant to be questioned. And Elena lets him, because every word he adds is another brick in the corner he's building for himself. Mr. Caldwell keeps talking because silence no longer bends the way it used to. He fills it with certainty, with declarations, with rules spoken as if they've always existed this way. His voice grows firmer, louder, not in anger but in correction. The kind of tone meant to remind everyone who decides what counts. "This isn't how we do things here," he says again, slower this time, making sure it lands. "There's a process. There's structure." He underlines the last word with a sharp motion of his marker, drawing a line beneath something Elena never wrote. The board squeaks. A few students flinch at the sound. Ryan watches closely now, his smile thinning into something more focused. He senses movement even if he doesn't yet understand it. Elena stands quietly while Mr. Caldwell rewrites parts of the problem to suit his explanation. She watches his hand, the pressure he uses, where the ink darkens when he's frustrated. She notices how he avoids looking directly at her now, addressing the room instead, as if she's already been reduced to an example rather than a participant. "This class isn't about shortcuts," Mr. Caldwell continues. "It's about discipline, about doing things the right way." The right way. The words echo. A few students nod again, relieved to be given something familiar to hold on to. Order feels safe, even when it's wrong. Ryan clears his throat, loud enough to be heard. "Yeah," he adds casually. "Some people just get lucky once." Mr. Caldwell doesn't look at him, but he doesn't correct him either. Silence grants approval. Ryan settles back, satisfied. The room absorbs the message without protest. Success, when it comes from the wrong place, must be explained away. Elena feels the eyes on her shift. Not hostile, assessing, curious. People are no longer waiting for her to fail. They're waiting to see how far Mr. Caldwell will go to make sure she doesn't succeed. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't defend herself. She lets him finish. When he finally stops, there's a pause. A small one. He expects her to rush into it, to correct him, to plead, to argue. That's how these moments usually end. The student tries to reclaim ground and loses whatever dignity they had left. Elena does nothing. The pause stretches. Mr. Caldwell's eyebrows knit together. He doesn't like unanswered moments unless he controls them. He shifts his stance, squaring his shoulders. "If you actually understood what you were saying," he says, "you wouldn't explain it like that. It's not a question. It's a verdict." Elena nods once. Small, almost imperceptible. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. She takes the information and files it away. The accusation isn't about method. It's about belonging, about who gets to sound confident and who doesn't. She opens her mouth, then closes it again. Not hesitation. Choice. Mr. Caldwell mistakes it for weakness. Look, he says, spreading his hands, addressing the class again. This is exactly why we don't jump ahead. You skip the fundamentals and you end up confused. A few students shift, uncomfortable now. One girl glances between Elena and the board, her brow furrowed. Something isn't lining up anymore. The explanation Elena gave made sense. Mr. Caldwell's correction feels louder, not clearer. Ryan notices it too. He leans forward, voice sharper. If she really gets it, why doesn't she just say it the right way? There's an edge to his tone now. Defensive. He doesn't realize it, but the ground he stands on has started to move. Elena finally speaks again. Only one sentence. May I continue? Her voice is steady, not challenging, not apologetic, factual. It assumes permission without begging for it. Mr. Caldwell hesitates, just for a fraction of a second. It's barely visible, but it's there. The room feels it like a change in air pressure. He doesn't like being asked anything in his own classroom. Go ahead, he says quickly. Too quickly. But do it properly. Elena resumes. She doesn't change her pace. She doesn't adjust her tone. She doesn't adopt his language. She continues exactly where she left off, addressing the flaw he introduced without calling it out. She walks through the logic again, cleaner this time, leaving no gaps to exploit. A low sound moves through the room. Not approval. Recognition. Mr. Caldwell opens his mouth to interrupt again, then stops himself. He closes it. The marker lowers slightly. He watches her now, really watches, as if seeing her for the first time. Ryan's confidence wavers. His foot taps against the floor. He stops smiling. Elena reaches the end of the explanation and stops. She doesn't add anything. She doesn't look around for a reaction. She simply stands there, waiting. The room doesn't rush to fill the silence this time. Mr. Caldwell clears his throat. The sound is dry. Well, he says, searching for something that won't cost him control. The pause that follows is heavier than before, because now everyone can feel it. The rules didn't change because Elena was wrong. They changed because she wasn't. Show your work. Mr. Caldwell says it like a verdict, not a request. The words land heavy, final, meant to corner. This is supposed to be the last move. The demand that exposes the gap. The place where confidence collapses into silence and excuses. He doesn't hide his certainty. He doesn't need to. In his mind, this is where the story corrects itself. Ryan nods along immediately, already relaxing. This is familiar territory. This is where people like Elena run out of road. He imagines the joke he'll tell later, the one that will get a laugh without trying too hard. Something about guessing. Something about luck finally running out. He's certain this is where it ends. Elena doesn't react right away. She doesn't stiffen. She doesn't rush. She doesn't look at Mr. Caldwell to measure his mood. She looks down briefly at her bag. The movement is small, ordinary, but it pulls every eye in the room toward it. Anticipation tightens. This is the moment they've all been waiting for, even if they don't know why. She reaches into her bag. Not dramatically, not slowly enough to perform, just enough to be deliberate. Her fingers close around the edge of a notebook. Worn, softened at the corners. The cover bends easily, like it's been opened 1,000 times. She lifts it out and places it on the desk in front of Mr. Caldwell. The sound it makes is dull, heavier than expected. Then she reaches back into the bag again. Another notebook. Thicker. More worn. The spine cracked. Pages swollen with use. She places that one down too beside the first. The third follows. The room shifts before anyone realizes they've moved. Chairs creak. Someone in the back leans forward, elbows on knees. A girl near the window straightens, eyes narrowing as if trying to read the covers from a distance. This isn't the stumble they were promised. Mr. Caldwell looks down at the stack. For the first time since this began, he doesn't speak immediately. He flips open the top notebook. The first page isn't neat. It's dense. Lines of work fill the space, crossed out and rewritten. Corrections sit in the margins, arrows pointing back to earlier steps. Dates are written at the top in small handwriting. Not today's date. Not yesterday's. Weeks ago. Months ago. He turns the page. Then another. He flips faster now, the practice calm slipping just enough to notice. Each page tells the same story. Practice problems. Variations. Notes written late, judging by the uneven ink. Mistakes owned and corrected. Patterns worked through patiently. There's no performance here. No rush to impress. Just work. Ryan lets out a laugh. Comes too late. Too sharp. It echoes once and dies immediately when no one joins him. He stops mid-breath, confused. He wasn't supposed to be alone in that sound. Mr. Caldwell doesn't look up. He keeps turning pages. Faster. The smile he's worn all class fades completely, replaced by something tighter. Focused. This isn't improvisation. This isn't memorization done overnight. This is preparation that predates the moment he tried to control. He clears his throat. "Where did you get this material?" he asks. The question sounds neutral, but the implication isn't. It sharpens as soon as it leaves his mouth. He flips another page. This isn't standard coursework. Elena stands quietly. She doesn't lean forward. She doesn't gesture to the notebooks. She lets them speak for themselves. Mr. Caldwell looks up now. "Who helped you?" There it is. The shift. When skill can't be denied, motive is questioned. When effort disrupts hierarchy, background becomes suspect. A few students feel it even if they can't name it. The room grows still again. Ryan watches closely. This is the part he understands. Someone like her doesn't get here alone. There has to be an explanation that restores order. Elena answers without hesitation. "I studied." 2 words. Flat. Unemotional. Not defensive. Not proud. She doesn't elaborate. She doesn't list sacrifices. She doesn't explain nights or schedules or reasons. She doesn't ask to be believed. Silence follows. Mr. Caldwell looks back down at the notebooks. His fingers press into the paper a little harder than necessary. He flips to a random page, then another, as if hoping to find the flaw he knows must be there. Something copied. Something inconsistent. Something that proves this isn't real. He doesn't find it. The standards he insisted on are right here. Met. Exceeded. Laid out without apology. The same rigor he demands from the class exists in these pages, multiplied by time and discipline he never saw coming. Ryan shifts in his seat. Once. Then again. His foot taps, then stops. The confidence he walked in with no longer has a place to sit. He doesn't know what to say, so he says nothing. Mr. Caldwell closes the notebook. Too slowly. The sound of it settling on the desk is final in a way words aren't. He straightens the stack without looking at Elena, aligning the edges carefully, as if order on the desk might restore order in the room. For the first time, he doesn't know where to go next. And everyone can feel it.mr. Caldwell keeps his hand resting on the top notebook longer than necessary. His fingers flatten against the cover, as if pressure alone might erase what's inside. He exhales through his nose and looks up at the room instead of at Elena. That choice matters. Looking at her would mean acknowledging her as a participant. Looking at the room lets him stay in control. "These don't prove understanding," he says finally. The words land flat. Even he seems to hear it. They don't carry the weight they used to. He taps the notebook once with his finger, then slides it a few inches away from himself, as if distance might weaken it. "Anyone can fill pages," he continues. "Anyone can copy problems. Repeat steps." No one nods this time. A few students glance at each other. Someone in the front row tilts their head, confused. The certainty that once filled the room has thinned. Not vanished, just cracked enough to let questions in. Elena remains still. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't correct him. She lets the claim sit exactly where it falls. Silence has already proven useful today. She uses it again. Mr. Caldwell senses the shift and pushes forward. Understanding is about method, he says louder now. About approach. About doing things the right way. The phrase returns like a shield. The right way. He reaches for it because it's familiar. Because it's worked before. Ryan clears his throat. Yeah, he says, trying to sound casual. I mean, that could be from anywhere. The room doesn't respond. His voice hangs there alone. He swallows and leans back, suddenly aware of how exposed he sounds. Mr. Caldwell nods once, grateful for the support even if it's weak. He turns back to Elena. Explain this, he says, flipping the notebook open to a random page and tapping a line. Why this step? Is a test wrapped in permission, an attempt to regain ground. He expects hesitation, or over-explanation, something he can cut down. Elena looks at the page, just for a second. She doesn't reach for the notebook. She doesn't ask to hold it. She doesn't ask for time. She answers. Her voice is calm, even. She explains the step he pointed to, then the one before it. She connects them cleanly the way she always has. She doesn't say his name. She doesn't say because. She states facts, logic, sequence. Mr. Caldwell interrupts halfway through. No, he says sharply. That's not the standard approach. Elena stops mid-sentence. Immediately, not offended, not startled. She simply stops. She waits. The interruption echoes louder than her words ever did. A girl near the window shifts uncomfortably. Someone in the back scratches their head. The explanation Elena was giving made sense. Cutting it off feels abrupt. Mr. Caldwell realizes it too late. He's already spoken, already exposed impatience where authority used to be. Continue, he says quickly, but use the accepted method. Elena nods once. Again, not agreement, acknowledgement. She continues. She doesn't change her reasoning. She reframes it in the language he prefers, translating without conceding. The same logic expressed through the structure he demands. Step by step. No gaps. No leaps. The room follows her now. Not because they're rooting for her. Because they understand her. Mr. Caldwell opens his mouth, then closes it. He waits. The marker stays still in his hand. Elena finishes the explanation and stops. She doesn't look at him. She looks straight ahead, eyes steady, posture unchanged. The notebooks remain on the desk between them, silent and heavy. No one speaks. The clock ticks. Ryan shifts again. His knee bounces once, then stills. He feels the attention moving away from him, from where it's always sat, and toward something he doesn't control. He doesn't like it. He doesn't know how to interrupt without sounding desperate. Mr. Caldwell clears his throat. The sound is dry. Well, he says, the word doesn't lead anywhere. He looks down at the notebooks again, then back at the class. He's searching for a response that restores balance without admitting fault. Recognition, if it comes, must be limited, controlled. That's sufficient, he says finally. The word costs him. Everyone hears it. Does not praise. Does containment. An attempt to end the moment without resolving it. He slides the notebooks back toward Elena. Not gently, not roughly, just enough to signal dismissal. You can sit, he adds. Elena gathers the notebooks. She stacks them neatly the way she always does. She returns them to her bag without rush, without ceremony. She doesn't smile. She doesn't look around. She simply returns to her seat and sits down. Same posture, same calm. The room exhales, though no one notices themselves doing it. Something has shifted. Not loudly, not completely, but enough that it won't settle back into place easily. Mr. Caldwell turns to the board and begins erasing. The squeak is sharp, frantic. He writes something new, something safe, something that doesn't require witnesses. But the notebooks are still there, in everyone's mind, and the certainty that once ruled the room no longer feels untouchable. The room doesn't celebrate. It never does when power slips. Celebration would require permission, and no one has given it. What settles instead is something heavier, more unsettling. Uncertainty. It moves slowly, like air changing pressure, making ears pop without warning. Students shift in their seats, not sure why they feel different, only that they do. Mr. Caldwell clears his throat. The sound is small, but it carries. He doesn't look at Elena when he speaks. He looks past her, toward the far wall, toward the idea of order he's trying to restore. Recognition, when it comes, arrives late and stripped of warmth. It costs him something to say even this much. "That will be all," he mutters. No apology follows. No acknowledgement of effort. No words about fairness. Just retreat, disguised as dismissal. He turns away immediately, as if lingering might expose more than he's willing to give up. Elena doesn't wait for anything else. She gathers her bag and returns to her seat with the same measured pace she stood up with. No rush. No relief visible on her face. Her posture doesn't change. She doesn't lift her chin. She doesn't drop her eyes. She sits, opens her notebook, and picks up her pen. And she keeps working. That's what unsettles people the most. Not that she answered correctly. Not that she proved anything. But that she doesn't mark the moment. She doesn't claim it. She doesn't look around to see who's watching now. She doesn't need to. Ryan doesn't look at her again. He stares straight ahead, jaw tight, eyes unfocused. The confidence he walked in with is gone, replaced by something quieter and harder to define. Not shame, not humility, just absence. The absence of certainty. He learned nothing heroic today. There's no growth arc waiting for him. Just the realization that the world didn't bend the way he expected it to. A few students glance at Elena, then quickly look away, unsure what they're allowed to feel. Admiration feels risky. Silence feels safer. It always has. Mr. Caldwell writes on the board. The marker squeaks, sharp and hurried. He moves faster than before, filling space, reclaiming rhythm. He doesn't reference what just happened. He doesn't ask questions. He lectures. It's familiar ground. Safe ground. The kind where authority doesn't get challenged by proof. But something has already shifted. Not dramatically. Not cleanly. The system doesn't collapse in moments like this. Creaks. It groans. Hairline fractures form where certainty used to be solid. When the bell rings, chairs scrape back louder than usual. Students stand in uneven waves. Conversations don't start right away. People hesitate, glancing around, waiting to see who speaks first. Ryan leaves quickly, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes fixed on the door. Elena packs up last. Unhurried, she tucks her notebook away, zips her bag, and stands. She doesn't look at Mr. Caldwell on her way out. She doesn't need to. He keeps his eyes on the board, marker moving even though there's nothing left to write. In the hallway, whispers begin. Not loud ones, careful ones. Questions phrased as observations. Did you see that? I didn't know she. How long has she been that good? No one finishes the thought. They don't have language for what just happened yet. By the lockers, a girl pauses, staring at her own reflection longer than usual. Somewhere else, someone replays the moment Elena laid the notebooks down, wondering how many quiet hours that represented. How many other people have done the same work without ever being asked to stand? Nothing is fixed. Grades won't change overnight. Mr. Caldwell will still stand at the front of the room tomorrow. Ryan's name will still open doors. But something is cracked. Power was loud. Legitimacy was quiet. And when the two finally met, only one of them held. Elena walks down the hall without slowing. Same pace. Same calm. She blends back into the flow of students, indistinguishable to anyone who wasn't paying attention. That's how dignity works. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand witnesses. It waits until the moment demands truth. The questions don't surface all at once. They leak out slowly, through pauses and half-finished sentences, through looks that linger a second too long. Elena hears them without turning her head. She always has. The way people lower their voices when they say her name now. The way curiosity replaces dismissal, careful and unsure of itself. After class, the hallway carries a different kind of noise. Not louder, just uneven. Conversations start and stop. A few students walk in silence longer than usual, replaying moments they didn't expect to matter. Someone laughs too hard near the lockers, trying to restore normalcy. It doesn't quite work. Mr. Caldwell stays behind in the classroom. The door closes softly. No one sees what he does after. That's important. Power only mattered when it was public. Whatever happens now doesn't count. There will be no reflection on display. No admission. The system doesn't apologize. It adjusts its posture and waits. Ryan's afternoon unravels in small ways he doesn't name. A joke falls flat at lunch. A friend doesn't laugh fast enough. Someone changes the subject when he starts retelling the story the way he planned it. He abandons the effort halfway through. For the first time, he senses that repeating his version won't make it true. He won't confront Elena. He won't apologize. That would require acknowledging what really happened. Instead, he shrinks the memory until it fits somewhere uncomfortable and quiet. That's how people like him survive moments like this. Not by learning, by compartmentalizing. Elena sits in her next class, notebook open, pen moving. The rhythm steadies her. It always has. Work is honest. It doesn't flatter or dismiss. It doesn't care who is watching. The equations fill the page the same way they always do, patient and exact. A student across the aisle glances at her, then back at their paper. Another watches her for a moment longer, then straightens, as if inspired by something they can't quite explain. Elena doesn't notice, or maybe she does and chooses not to respond. Either way, she remains unchanged. Days pass. The story doesn't explode. It circulates, quietly, in fragments. Someone mentions it to someone else who wasn't there. Details blur. Names fade. But the core remains. A moment when the rules didn't protect who they were supposed to protect. Mr. Caldwell becomes more careful. Not kinder. Careful. He calls on different students. Spreads attention wider. Avoids singling anyone out without reason. He never references that day. He doesn't need to. The memory sits between him and the class like an object neither side wants to touch. Once, weeks later, he pauses before calling on someone. Just a fraction of a second longer than usual. It's nothing anyone could prove. But it's there. Elena notices. She always does. She continues to sit where she always has. Second row. Same seat. Same posture. She answers when asked. She stays quiet when she's not. She doesn't volunteer more. She doesn't withdraw. She exists exactly as she did before, which is the point. The system hasn't been fixed. It rarely is. But a crack has formed, and cracks have a way of spreading. Not through force. Through awareness. A student who used to shrink speaks up once. Another studies a little longer than they used to. Someone stops assuming the quiet girl doesn't belong. These changes are small, almost invisible, but they accumulate. That's how legitimacy works. It doesn't arrive with speeches or applause. It settles slowly, reshaping the space it occupies. Elena finishes another notebook by the end of the semester. She starts a new one. Same worn cover. Same careful handwriting. She doesn't mark milestones. She doesn't frame moments as victories or defeats. She just continues. Because dignity was never something she earned that day. It was something she carried in with her. Power had the microphone. Legitimacy had the truth. And when the noise faded, only one of them remained steady. That's the part people remember, even if they can't say why. Not the command. Not the silence. Not even the notebooks. But the quiet certainty of someone who never asked to be believed, and didn't need permission to be right.